welcome to a conversation on the GH5. I want to run through some specs here in a minute, but first I'd like to share some opinions about it as a camera, just in general. So if you'll pardon me for looking at my notes, that way I stay concise. So I really feel like that micro four thirds sensor is just too small. I feel like that sensor size limits high ISO and low light performance. I feel like it limits the depth of field and how much light that the sensor can gather. I feel like the larger professionally sealed body reduces the benefits of a small micro four thirds platform, small micro four thirds mirrorless system. Panasonic seems to kind of make up features like 4K and 6K capture rather than putting in effort towards making like serious and substantial systems work the way that I at least feel like they should. Those systems primarily being autofocus, and in particular autofocus continuous that uses a contrast-based only system. So there's that, and then there's also, like I mentioned previously, the ISO performance is just not very good at all. However, it does use 422 10-bit color depth, and it has 4K 60, which are both fantastic features. So 422 10-bit is twice as much color, and it's 64 times the color depth of 420 8-bit. But Panasonic uses those two features to kind of cover over a multitude of deficiencies, in my opinion. Those are in part ISO, sensor size limitations, and that AF performance, which still isn't fantastic. It's reliable enough to use in a lot of contexts that the GH4 wasn't reliable enough to use in, but it's still nowhere near something like dual pixel autofocus, which I feel like it kind of has to be with everything that the market's doing right now. I don't really feel like there's any value to 4K and 6K capture, and I feel like although there is a whole lot of value in a large probe, like a pro format and pro sealed body, it doesn't also maintain, like I said previously, the value of a small, portable, flexible micro four thirds mirrorless system. So as many of you are probably aware, the GH5 is recently released, and I kind of want to run through a bunch of the features that it has that make it a really appealing camera to quite a lot of people. So it has 422 10-bit color depth, which, as I've mentioned previously, is twice as much color and 64 times as much bit depth as 420 10-bit. It has 6K and 4K capture features. It has V-Log, built-in LUT support. It has waveforms, vector scopes, focus peaking, zebras. However, that V-Log does cost $100 to upgrade to. And I really don't think that was a good idea. I think that was a really bad move. I mean, the GH5 is Panasonic's flagship camera. It should have that baked into the price. The GH5 is kind of a measuring stick for a lot of cameras, outside of the micro four thirds category even, and so not including it is really not a great way to measure other manufacturers up to it in turn. Like, that looks badly on, that makes consumers look poorly upon Panasonic, but it also entices other first-party manufacturers like Canon, Nikon, Sony to include something like that in their systems. It has 20 megapixels. Its autofocus is new and improved. It has no optical low-pass filter. There will be a couple of firmware updates being released here in the summer, and they're really exciting. So that'll be 422 10-bit color depth in 1080, as well as a 400 megabits per second all intra-frame 4K codec. It's professional grade weather sealed, It has in-body and in-lens stabilization, so the stabilized footage out of the GH5 is genuinely some of the best footage that you can get handheld. All of the footage that I've seen of it using that dual IS is genuinely, before I was told that it was only using both of those stabilization systems, I genuinely thought it was on a gimbal because it was incredible. It has a great EVF. It can shoot 9 frames per second. It has a new autofocus joystick, so you can select which autofocus point you want more quickly, which is a great professional grade ergonomic function that they really are making a great move to add. It has 4K, and that 4K captures off of the whole sensor and then super scales down to the resolution that you want. So it's capturing and then super sampling down to 4K. It's one of the big knocks against the GH4 was the ISO performance, and you can actually use the ISO up to about 6400 on the GH5, except for in like high frame rate modes, like in 1080p, where you can push your frame rate up to about 180 frames per second. So the video autofocus is hampered by reliance on contrast-based autofocus systems. The tracking, however, works really well. The tracking AF has been a really strong point for Panasonic autofocus functionality for a little bit now, so that's really good to see and to hear. So one little last point is the GH5 worth it if you're coming from the GH4? And the answer to that is yes, because the GH5 does everything the GH4 does better, and it has a bunch of new features, not the least of which being, Vlog, which is going to be a huge deal for a lot of people, but more importantly to me is that dual image stabilization. So I'd really love to hear what you guys have to think about 6K, 4K capture, about full sensor readout for 4K, about all these features and what they mean to you, and are you buying this camera? Or do you know people who are interested in this camera? What makes it particularly interesting to you or to them? Because it's not to me because of the sensor size. That sensor size is a huge limiting factor for me. So I'd love to hear from the horse's mouth, as it were, why Micro Four Thirds systems are so popular, especially when their form factor is no longer so small so as to make the size a really great feature as well. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Please check out my Patreon link and donate there. That helps me make more and better content for you, as well as my Facebook page, which has some of my professional photography on it as well. So don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe. Looking forward to seeing you in the next one.